Karen's sisters hosted a party on my boat without my permission, so I let them drift into open sea. The sea was quiet that morning, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like something's waiting to explode. I was having coffee in my kitchen, staring out the window at the distant shimmer of the marina. The sun had barely crawled over the horizon when my phone buzzed violently on the counter. Unknown number. I almost ignored it until the words Coast Guard lit up beneath the number. This is Commander Reyes with the U.S. Coast Guard. Are you the owner of a white Pershing 9X yacht registered under the name Sea Haven? My stomach dropped. Yes, I said slowly. There's been an incident. It felt like my blood turned to ice. Images of the boat, my pride and joy, smashed on rocks or worse, hijacked by some cartel flashed through my head. But what I heard next made me grip the edge of the counter in stunned disbelief. We found your vessel drifting 4 miles offshore with no captain, no registered crew. Just a group of women intoxicated and disoriented. Some appeared to be hosting a party. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My jaw locked up. I hadn't authorized anyone to use my boat. Nobody had my permission. And yet someone's had thrown a full-blown party on it. Reyes continued, his voice dry. They claimed they were invited. Said they were the new co-owners. Sound familiar? It did. And unfortunately, I already knew who it was. 2 names. Linda and Brenda. Flashback to 2 days earlier. I had been scrolling mindlessly through Instagram when a particular story popped up. One that made my breath hitch in my throat. It was a video filtered with sparkles and that generic pop music influencers love. A group of women were laughing and posing on my yacht. There was no mistaking it. The teak deck, the custom-built bar, the leather lounge chairs. Every inch of that boat was mine. I'd saved for years, worked 90-hour weeks, and finally made the dream come true 6 months ago. And there it was, being paraded like a rented backdrop in a socialite's fantasy. In the center of the chaos were 2 very loud, very large women wearing matching light blue floral dresses that clung tight across their round midsections. Linda and Brenda, identical twins, 35 years old, with bleached blonde hair, dramatic eyeliner, and the smug entitlement of people who'd never been told no. I'd met them once before at a neighborhood event. They were unforgettable, loud, intrusive, and painfully unaware of personal boundaries. They'd flirted, fished for a boat invitation, and when I politely declined, they laughed it off as if I were joking. Apparently, they weren't the kind to take no seriously. The story continued. Brenda screamed into the camera, "Yacht life, baby. No better way to live." Champagne sprayed in all directions as Linda twerked, yes, twerked, on my captain's chair. I'd felt something between rage and violation. It was like finding out someone broke into your home and held a circus in your living room. I immediately called the marina, furious. The dockmaster, Ray, answered with his usual calm. "Hey man, everything okay?" "No, Ray. My boat's missing." A beat. Then wait, what? I told him what I saw. Within 10 minutes, Ray was checking dock cameras. 30 minutes later, he sent me the footage. There they were, Linda and Brenda, waddling down the dock like they owned the place. They each carried beach bags, speaker systems, and 3-tiered coolers. They were followed by 10 other women in gaudy swimsuits, feather boas, and wedges. I watched as Linda held up something small and shiny. A key. My key. "I don't understand," I said aloud. "I never gave them access." Ray sounded baffled. "Only 2 people have keys. You and me. And mine's still on my chain." Then I remembered, last month I had a cleaning crew come in. They'd left a spare key in a storage drawer, meant to be returned. It wasn't. Now I was livid, but I didn't scream or punch walls. That wasn't my style. I sat down. I breathed. And I made a plan. But first, I had to confront the thieves. When the Coast Guard towed the yacht back that morning, I met them at the harbor, arms crossed and jaw clenched. What rolled into the marina didn't even look like Sea Haven. Empty champagne bottles clinked around the deck. Lipstick-stained plastic cups floated in melted ice buckets. My leather seating had glitter stuck into the seams. Someone had drawn a heart in eyeliner on the window of the navigation panel. And there, seated on the bow, like queens returning from war, were Linda and Brenda. Their dresses were wrinkled and soaked with spilled rose, makeup smeared across their round faces. One held a selfie stick like a scepter. The other was eating soggy crackers from a box. The moment they spotted me, they lit up. "There he is," Linda called, slurring slightly. "The captain himself." Brenda stumbled toward the gangplank, grinning. "Don't worry, boo. We kept her safe." "You stole my boat," I said, voice low and tight. "Borrowed," Brenda corrected, eyes wide with fake innocence. "You said we should have a girls' day on the water, remember?" I said no such thing. Linda rolled her eyes, scoffing. "Oh, please, don't be so uptight. It was just a fun little party. Nobody got hurt." The audacity knocked the wind out of me. I looked at the other women, none of whom looked the slightest bit embarrassed. One was asleep on a towel. Another scrolled through her phone like nothing had happened. "Do you realize what you've done? This is criminal trespassing. You vandalized my property. You endangered yourselves and everyone on board." Brenda smirked. "Chill, sailor boy. You act like we sank the Titanic." I said nothing. My silence was heavy, focused. I didn't want an apology anymore. I wanted justice. Not the kind that comes with cops and courtrooms, though that would come too. I wanted poetic justice. The kind you never forget. But I wasn't going to get it by yelling. These two thrived on attention. Conflict only fed their egos. I needed something else. Something smarter. Something permanent. "You're lucky the Coast Guard picked you up before anything worse happened," I said calmly. Linda adjusted her dress, trying to smooth out a stain. "Yeah, we kind of drifted too far. Might want to fix that autopilot. It sucks." I gave her a small smile. "I will. Thanks for the feedback." And just like that, I walked away. Later that evening, I inspected the boat thoroughly. They'd cracked a window in the galley. My sound system was water damaged. One of the toilets was clogged with paper towels. My bed, God help me, reeked of spilled tequila and spray tan. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, thinking of their smug faces. The giggling. The casual disregard. They didn't deserve mercy. They deserved a lesson. And I was going to give them one. The next morning, I got to work. First, I called a marine technician and had my yacht upgraded. Remote control systems, an anchor override, hidden GPS tracking, and fuel lockouts, top of the line. All disguised to look perfectly ordinary. Then I got new security cameras, motion sensors, and a Bluetooth speaker system that could be activated from my phone. Everything was ready within the week. I returned to Instagram, browsed the twins' pages. They were already hinting at another fabulous sea day, tagging my location in coded captions. They still thought they could take my boat whenever they wanted. So I baited them. Posted a casual story. Out of town all weekend. Boats just floating there. Shame no one's using it. They bit in less than 2 hours. I could see them zooming in on my location tags. Then the cryptic post from Brenda, ready to take back the ocean. They didn't even wait for sunset. Saturday morning, they strutted down the dock again. Same floral dresses, same posse of cackling women. One held a tray of shrimp cocktails. Another balanced a Bluetooth speaker on her shoulder. Linda wore a captain's hat she clearly thought was cute. I watched it all from a rented fishing boat 2 docks down, sunglasses on, pretending to tie a lure. The moment they stepped on board, music started blasting. Screams of excitement. Glasses clinking. Someone shouted, "Let's make a reel before we get drunk." And then, slowly, silently, I tapped a button on my phone. The anchor lifted. The yacht began to drift. They didn't notice. Not at first. I watched from the shadows as Sea Haven slid away from the marina, invisible to the GPS system they thought they understood. Out of reach. Out of signal. Into the open sea, where no one could hear them scream. And that was just the beginning. The wind pushed the yacht ever so gently at first, as if nature herself hadn't quite made up her mind. But by the time the twins and their glitter-clad entourage were popping their second bottle of champagne, Sea Haven had drifted a good 100 yards beyond the marina's invisible safety line. They were too deep in their own noise to notice the growing gap between themselves and land. The music thundered through the yacht's upgraded speakers, ironically powered by me, while shrill laughter and high-pitched cheers echoed out into the wide, empty blue. Brenda tossed her head back, a cluster of grapes dangling from her fingers like she was starring in some tragic remake of a Greek goddess painting. "Now this," she shouted over the beat, "is the life I deserve." Linda, equally inebriated and equally inflated with ego, took another selfie. "God, I look so hot right now. This lighting? Unreal." Their guests were spread around the deck like mannequins at a discount boutique, one snoring on a tanning mat, another guzzling from a plastic bottle wrapped in rhinestones. One woman, wearing a bikini made entirely of sequins, shrieked as she nearly slipped into the jacuzzi. Nobody noticed that the coastline was no longer visible behind them. From the shadows of my rented fishing boat, parked safely behind a small island bluff, I watched everything unfold through my binoculars. The GPS I installed gave me a perfect readout of their exact location, their heading, their speed, even the yacht's interior temperature. Every detail was under my control. I waited. It wasn't enough for them to simply drift. I needed the realization to creep in. I needed them to feel it, not just inconvenience, but helplessness. It had to be slow and undeniable. About 45 minutes in, the first cracks started to show. "Oh, where's the marina?" asked one woman, adjusting her sunglasses and squinting. Linda waved dismissively. "We're just out farther. It's fine." Another woman stood, looked around nervously, then pulled out her phone. "I've got no bars. Do you have service?" Brenda dug into her beach bag, retrieved her phone, and frowned. "Weird. I had full bars earlier." "You probably had Wi-Fi earlier," I whispered to myself, grinning. I had set the router to shut off the moment they left the safe radius. By the 1-hour mark, the sun had grown harsher and the mood had started to sour. Someone turned off the music. The laughter had dwindled. A seagull circled above like an omen. The ocean, once a backdrop for their ridiculous social media posts, now stretched endlessly in all directions. Linda stomped to the navigation console, jabbing at buttons. "Why the hell isn't this working?" The screen's blank. That was the override. I had deactivated every visible system. Brenda followed, her floral dress flapping in the salty breeze. "Maybe it's in sleep mode?" "Oh, brilliant. Maybe if we yell louder, the boat will wake up," one of the guests snapped. "Don't you dare talk to my sister like that," Brenda snapped back, her thick arms folding across her chest. "I'm just saying, we're floating out here like idiots." The tension began to ferment. Panic simmered beneath the surface. They still hadn't figured out just how far they were from any help. And I wasn't going to let them off the hook yet. I sent the signal. Inside the yacht, the Bluetooth speaker system flared to life again, not with music, but with my voice, pre-recorded days ago, and now echoing through the empty decks like a ghost. "Hello, ladies. Enjoying the sea?" Gasps. Shrieks. A plastic glass fell and rolled across the deck. Linda spun in place. "Who said that?" The message continued, calm and sharp. "You're probably wondering why the navigation isn't working. Why there's no signal. Why you've been floating aimlessly for the last hour and 23 minutes. Brenda turned pale. "Oh my God. Is this some kind of prank?" "Not a prank," my voice said, a little louder now. "A lesson. You took what didn't belong to you. You trespassed. You disrespected. You laughed in my face. But guess what? I'm laughing now." Someone screamed. Another woman began pacing, whispering, "This isn't happening. This isn't happening." "You wanted a party," I said through the speaker. "Well, congratulations. You got one. And now the sea's your dance floor." The message cut off. The boat was silent again, except for the waves slapping against the hull. That was the tipping point. The Twin Karens lost it. "This is illegal. This is entrapment." Linda shrieked, clutching the captain's chair like it was a throne falling from power. Brenda was already at the side of the boat, screaming into her dead phone. "Siri, call 911. Call Coast Guard. Call somebody. Nothing. They all tried their phones. Some wailed. One woman even tried waving a beach towel like a flag. Another pulled out a compact mirror and tried using it as a signal, aiming it at the sky like a deranged castaway. Linda stomped around, eyes wide with fury. He's got to be watching. He's probably spying on us right now. She wasn't wrong. I watched through the upgraded cameras, silent, steady, savoring every second. They had made my sanctuary into their personal trashy nightclub. Now they could enjoy the open sea with no filters, no escape, and no way to edit the story. Then came the desperation. "We got to steer back," one woman said, holding a half-eaten bag of chips like a life raft. "None of us know how to drive a boat," Brenda yelled. "We barely know how to use the blender." They tried anyway. They took turns pushing buttons, twisting levers, and yelling into the dead comms. Someone almost knocked over the radar dish. Another woman tripped and skinned her knee, crying like a child. One tried to turn on the emergency radio, not realizing I had disabled that too. Their amateur flailing only made the situation worse. That's when the ocean reminded them just how small they were. A gust of wind tilted the boat slightly. Not dangerously, but enough to knock over the champagne tower. Glass shattered across the deck. Someone slipped. A small wave smacked the side and sent one of the tanning chairs into the jacuzzi. And then the crying started. Real full-on sobbing. Not performative influencer tears, but the raw panic of people realizing they were powerless. Linda and Brenda sat near the helm, their matching floral dresses stained with sweat, salt, and spilled drinks. Their faces were streaked with mascara. The captain's hat lay discarded near their feet. "I just wanted to feel like someone important," Brenda whispered, trembling. "We just wanted to have fun." Linda didn't respond. Her eyes were locked on the horizon, wide, haunted. They were still hours from real danger. I would never have let them drift far enough to risk their lives. But they didn't know that. All they knew was that they had stolen something beautiful, mocked the person they stole it from, and now they were adrift, helpless, and humiliated. Satisfied, I picked up the satellite phone and called the Coast Guard. "Yeah, you'll find a yacht about 5 miles offshore. Group of women on board. They're unharmed, just disoriented. Might want to bring some earplugs." I didn't stay to watch the rescue. I didn't need to. By the time I reached the dock, my phone was blowing up. The incident had hit social media, fast. One of the women, in a moment of blind panic, had tried to live stream their distress, thinking it would get them help. Instead, she uploaded a shaky, blurry video of Linda screaming at the ocean and Brenda dry heaving into a bucket. It went viral. Yacht Karens was trending before the sun even set. Clips spread like wildfire. News outlets picked it up. Entitled Sisters hijack yacht, get lost at sea. Comment sections were brutal. One user wrote, "Finally, a story with a happy ending." Another added, "This is the energy 2025 needs." The twins' accounts went private, then silent, then disappeared. But I wasn't finished yet. Because now they weren't just embarrassed. They were exposed. And the consequences were only just beginning. It was early evening when the yacht finally returned, this time under the tow of the Coast Guard. The scene was far more theatrical than I could have hoped for. A crowd had gathered near the harbor railings, some drawn by the news, others by sheer curiosity. Word had spread quickly. A group of women, led by 2 notorious locals in matching blue floral dresses, had commandeered a luxury yacht and wound up stranded in the open sea. It sounded almost made up. But there it was, drifting slowly into the dock like a defeated parade float, followed by a rescue vessel, and the bitter taste of poetic justice. The deck of the yacht was a mess. Towels clung to the railings like wet flags, empty bottles clinked with the motion of the tide, and someone's glittery heel lay abandoned near the edge. Linda and Brenda sat hunched and sunburned, their faces sagging under melted mascara and shame. Their dresses clung to them, with the weight of sea spray and humiliation. The show was over, and the applause wasn't coming. I stood a few paces back, out of view, arms crossed as I watched them disembark one by one. Each guest looked more exhausted than the last, Smeared lipstick, tangled hair, sunburned shoulders. Some avoided eye contact entirely. Others glared toward the dock, like they could smell the mockery in the air. A few reporters circled like vultures, holding up mics and shouting questions they knew wouldn't be answered. Linda was the last to step off the yacht. Her legs wobbled. Her flip-flops snapped. She didn't say a word as a Coast Guard officer handed her a citation and gave her a brief explanation of the trespassing charges being filed. Brenda tried to protest, mumbling something about misunderstanding and accidental joyride, but her voice cracked halfway through. The officer didn't even blink. I could have stepped in then, could have revealed myself, rubbed salt in the wound, demanded an apology face to face. But I didn't. I'd already done what I needed to do. Sometimes silence was more powerful than any confrontation. Later that night, back at home, I watched the videos again. It was all over social media, dozens of clips stitched together from different angles. Screaming, crying, ridiculous demands to be rescued. Linda yelling into a dead phone. Brenda trying to steer the boat by frantically spinning the wheel. It was internet gold. One video, showing Brenda attempting to bribe the Coast Guard with a half-melted lip gloss and an expired coupon, had over 400,000 views in 2 hours. The hashtag YachtKarens was still climbing the trending charts. Commenters dissected every detail like forensic analysts. They identified everyone on board, shared clips of the twins from previous neighborhood incidents, and unearthed old posts of them boasting about manifesting luxury and owning the vibe. Their digital footprints had turned against them in real time. I took a deep breath and turned off the screen. A part of me wanted to be satisfied right there. But another part, maybe the part that had watched them trash my property without a shred of guilt, wanted to make sure the lesson stuck. The next morning, I filed the charges. I had all the evidence. Security footage, social media posts, eyewitnesses, Coast Guard reports. They had no defense, not even plausible denial. Within 48 hours, a formal case of criminal trespassing and property damage had been opened. I didn't need to exaggerate anything. The truth was more than enough. They tried to settle, of course. Their lawyer sent an email asking if we could resolve this amicably. Apparently, they were deeply remorseful and emotionally distressed by the incident. They even offered to cover some of the cleanup costs. I declined. Letting it go would have been the easy thing. But I was done making things easy for people who walked all over boundaries. Letting them off with a slap on the wrist would send the message that their behavior was just a quirky misstep. It wasn't. It was theft, it was arrogance, and it was a warning sign to everyone else watching. A week later, I returned to the yacht. The cleaning crews had done their best, but the damage lingered. Tiny scratches in the flooring, stubborn stains in the upholstery, the faint chemical smell of spilled perfume that no amount of scrubbing could erase. Still, it was quiet again. Peaceful. Mine. I sat on the upper deck that evening, watching the water reflect the dying orange of the sunset. The harbor was calm. Gulls glided low over the docks. For the first time in a long time, the sea felt like a sanctuary again. Then came the email from the marina. Linda and Brenda had been permanently banned from all docks affiliated with the Regional Boating Association. That included marinas across 5 neighboring cities. Their photos were attached to the alert, red-faced, disheveled, and unmistakably furious. The kind of faces that would forever be remembered as cautionary tales. And still, they refused to take real accountability. The next day, they went live on a new Instagram page, because their old ones had been reported and shut down. They wore sunglasses indoors, spoke in somber tones, claimed they were the victims of targeted harassment and an elaborate setup. Brenda cried. Linda clutched a tissue dramatically. They blamed a jealous man, insisted it was all a misunderstanding, and begged their followers for support. The comments didn't go the way they expected. "Girl, you stole a boat," one said. "Not you blaming the ocean for being salty," another replied. It was a beautiful thing to witness, the collapse of a delusion in real time. But the best part? One of their former yacht party guests, someone who had clearly turned against them, leaked private messages. Screenshots showed Linda and Brenda bragging about using my boat, mocking the possibility of getting caught, and laughing at how men never have the balls to fight back. Well, they found out. Soon after, a local news station ran the story. They did a full expose: the unauthorized yacht party, the Coast Guard rescue, the criminal charges, the social media spiral. The footage played across every screen in town: bar TVs, dentist offices, gas station pumps. People pointed. They whispered. They laughed. Linda and Brenda vanished again. Their house was dark for days. No new posts. No late-night deliveries. No more loud arguments that used to drift into neighboring yards. Some said they left town. Others claimed they were hiding out at a cousin's place. A few hoped they were finally sitting in front of a therapist, reckoning with the gap between who they thought they were and who the world saw. As for me, I moved on. I bought new security cameras, hired a stricter dock supervisor, installed a backup lock system only I could access. But most importantly, I told the story, honestly, calmly, and unapologetically. Every time someone asked what happened, I gave them the full version. Not to brag, not to stir gossip, but to make sure no one ever confused kindness for weakness again. People listened. I noticed the shift. Neighbors stopped making excuses for the twins. The same people who used to chuckle and say, "Oh, that's just Linda and Brenda being themselves," now referred to them in the past tense, as if they were cautionary myths. A storm that had passed. One afternoon, weeks later, as I was tying off the yacht for a solo trip, a teenage boy walked up to me, wide-eyed and curious. "You're the guy with the Karen boat story, right?" I nodded. His face lit up. That was epic. Then he asked what I'd done after the boat drifted into the sea. I smiled, looked out over the calm, endless blue. "I let them float," I said. "Sometimes the ocean teaches lessons land can't." He laughed, walked off. I stepped back onto the deck, hearing the familiar creak of polished wood beneath my feet. The yacht was clean now, the mess scrubbed out, the memories rebalanced. But every time I glanced out over the horizon, I remembered the image of them, scrambling, sobbing, arguing under the weight of their own egos, slowly disappearing into the ocean's embrace. It wasn't just revenge. It was closure. And as the engine hummed beneath me and the salt air touched my face, I knew one thing for sure. Next time, they'd think twice before boarding a boat that didn't belong to them. If there was a next time,